Hi guys, welcome back to INFJ. Today we are going to talk about INFJ fears or weaknesses. Before we get started, comment, like, and subscribe, and let's do this. So I really started thinking about this, and it's an interesting conundrum to talk about INFJ weaknesses because INFJs are typically good at talking about their feelings or psychology, and they typically like to do it. So it can be a little bit of teasing out to figure out what the INFJ's actual problems are, and it takes an observant and astute eye to feel fully seen when someone recognizes the shortcomings of an INFJ. So comment, like, and subscribe, and let's do this. So INFJ fears, fear of feelings. So INFJs have auxiliary extroverted feeling and demonstrative introverted feeling. Extroverted feeling is like exchange of feelings between two people. Introverted feeling is like the feelings swirling around inside of the self. Just general how I conceptualize it. INFJs, we think about the emotional exchange with our auxiliary extroverted feeling. We think about how often we hang out, and we think about if we have things in common. When we use introverted feeling, we admit to ourselves how we feel about someone. We may have a crush on someone, or we may admire a friend, but we may generally dislike them at the same time. We may know on some level that we aren't really compatible with this friend or this style of relationship that they want. FI reveals the relationships, or can reveal a relationship's one-sidedness in the case of a crush, or it can reveal to us that we deep down don't think that that person is the one. The key is to align introverted feeling and extroverted feeling so that the INFJ can relax into a relationship. So I know there is this level of, and it's weird with INFJs because we do have both of those feeling functions. There is a point where the feelings do reach a level of vulnerability, and the INFJ understands, I guess I'm a Capricorn also, there's a certain weakness and power that you give away when you have those feelings with someone. And so that is something. It is a dynamic. I wouldn't say it rules completely how the INFJ manages relationships. I think that this is something the INFJ is able to manage. This is not the downfall of the INFJ's relationships. I would say it is something that we have to process though. And it can be slightly hard, but the INFJ, I think, is able to do it. So yes, right, and I mentioned this, why would I even include this? With INFJs, don't just assume that they are completely competent in their feelings and their psychology, because this is what a lot of people can do, and a lot of people can miss this. People might think, and this is me subjectively, how I feel like people have viewed myself or INFJs in the past or present. People might view the INFJ as emotionally totally aware, totally compassionate, totally I know, I hate using that word, but some of these words, we're really strong in emotions, so you don't ever think that there is a weakness. Think of an athlete, or a soccer player. A soccer player, they might be a fabulous soccer player, but they really prefer defense. They're not that good at offense, but they're still better at offense than non-soccer players, obviously. But that's kind of how you got to think about it. Having skills or having an awareness does not mean that there are pitfalls or potholes in the road, right? So to say. So yes. And also the INFJ, since we're talking about crushes, talking about superficial things, admitting the INFJ introverted feeling manifests extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is results. Extroverted thinking can be superficial. Extroverted feeling can also be superficial. So understanding as an INFJ, I was talking to my INFJ friend once years and years ago, and obviously coming out of the closet, I started dating like much later in life than like my friends, because they like obviously, right? So coming out like very later in life, that starting dating later, I remember talking to my friend and being like, I like this person's personality, but I don't know, like, I don't know if I like their appearance. And my friend was an INFJ, and she knew me for years, and she says, Trevor, you should like the appearance of the person you're interested in. And it helped that an INFJ said that, because INFJs, I know myself and others, like, we do date people who like are not very attractive, and we're fine with that. But on some level, you should be attracted. So it helped me that an INFJ kind of gave me that superficial like refresher. This is, I don't know. There are just it's important to watch for these layers within an INFJ, and to watch for them in ourselves and with our INFJ friends. And if you're not an INFJ, if you're like an ESTP or a ESTJ, ENTJ, or just another type, and you view the INFJ as like super compassionate and super into all about their emotions, just know that like in the same way an INTP or an ISTP can have bad data and bad research, the INFJ also, like, the feelings are not perfect, right? I feel like that's worth saying. Double checking, revising, and editing. Oh my gosh, this is something I do not like as an INFJ. I like to get things right the first time. I'd rather take a long time to construct a logical system than edit a system. Introverted sensing, I don't know if it's introverted sensing, but some part of me, maybe it's tertiary introverted thinking, like maybe it's like I don't have as much introverted thinking as I wish I did, but like something about constructing a system, I like to get it right the first time. I don't like revising and editing it. In group projects, I always preferred to build the system of the group project. And I did not like to learn other people's systems. Like, I'd rather do the whole group project so I know everything that's going into it, rather than like I remember in college, like, not having faith in my group members. It's so silly, but and also then, like, if they did do something, then I would have to learn what they're doing. And so it's fine though. Over time that gets easier, but yes, it's like I want to construct it right the first time, and I don't like editing it. But yes, and then so like I like to construct it the first time, and also like talking about not going back and editing it. I like introverted intuition likes to move forward and create. So like in music school, one example I think of this subjectively within myself, and I did kind of see this with other INFJs. INFJs, we like to create music. We like to create expression in the music. So think of in a project, we like to add on to the project. So in like a music rehearsal, I always wish we focused more on expression within the piece. And sometimes the conductors, and they're like, conductors are very credentialed, but like we would be like harping on details for like 45 minutes. And for me as an INFJ, I'm like, well, what about like the actual like musical expression we could be adding to it, right? That is something that I think is an example. I'm not saying every INFJ has that view that I have, but this is an example of wanting to add on, create, move forward, rather than go fine tune something. I don't want to fine tune things like that, so this is like a general thing. Like, I don't do a million takes on like these YouTube videos, unless I like really have to. So growing up, another example, oh my goodness, growing up, like elementary school, we did something called paragraph a week. And like the revising, editing, like, so we wrote it on Monday, right? We wrote the rough draft. I liked writing the rough draft. I could not we did like brainstorming Monday, then write the rough draft on Tuesday, revise, edit on like Wednesday and Thursday. I like could not. Like, I literally was like, and I like didn't understand like going back and fixing something. What was I fixing? Like, what, and so, yeah, oh my goodness, yeah. This is like really, now that I say it, like, this is like that introverted feeling, vulnerability I'm feeling. But so you guys see it in real time, like the INFJ, like when we don't fully comprehend something, we're like, what am I supposed to do here? And so yes, I did not like revising and editing the work. Um, in order to revise and edit, I need motivation. Um, I know, like, later, like in college, like, I had more wherewithal to revise and edit. I also noticed in myself that I liked studying tangible subjects. I remember, like, in physics, my junior year of high school, like, loving reading the textbook. And I remember in college, the more tangible the class was, like urban planning, the more I was into it and the more I felt able to go back and revise and edit those ideas. So, anyways, um, okay, INFJ. This a lot about like my experience growing up in school in this video. Being wrong. Growing up in school, I would get upset when I would answer a question wrong. So like being an introvert, like and so obviously, girl, I never was ashamed of being an introvert. Like, or I never tried to. I never thought it was something to hide. I meet some introverts out here in the real world, and they're like, you know, especially I guess straight men, like men like want to be like extrovert businessmen, CEO types. So like sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, you're an introvert," and they get like mad or something. Not like all the time, but like I've seen it happen. Um, Introversion was never something I thought was like to be hidden, and so because I was an introvert, I thought, okay, I should be smart, or I should be smarter. I should be like at the top of the class, and like, you know, I was always like in the middle. And so I would get upset and I'd be like, what is my identity if I'm getting these questions wrong? And this could be tertiary, like introverted thinking. This is like overestimating my introverted thinking. It's my third function, but also over identifying it because I value it and I want to have more of it. Yes. Um, it helps if you have friends who can take you out of a self-judging mindset. But getting a question wrong also means we have to revise our knowledge. Yes, going back and correcting wrong connections, like wrong data we have. That's hard because I have tertiary introverted thinking and I don't like to do it. No, that's a part of life though, right? So I'm not saying like I never, ever, ever, right? Now I can do this. I just know growing up, like I did not like this. Yes, and then we talked about like INFJs who we think someone should like, we think we have a connection with someone, and we like we understand we put a lot of stock in our initial understanding of that connection. Now, like a connection with someone like romantically or platonic is not as what is the word? Is not as mathematical as like getting a question right or wrong on a test. But it's still something where we constructed an idea about something, and now it's like, what? This idea is wrong. Now I have to fix it. I have to fix this thing, right? So INFJ in those scenarios is probably right in a sense, but also needs to like consider there are more factors to consider. It helps to go into extroverted feeling where we are stronger to understand basically that introverted thinking is not the end all be all. INFJs, we value knowledge. I think we do. I guess, I loved like studying in college. So, right. So in high school, I was in a hard science class, and I would answer the question wrong, and then then the next question, I would like say the answer, like, but not raise my hand. So I would say it to myself. My friend, who I knew for a while, was sitting next to me, and she would answer, and her question was right. And so then she would laugh at me because I got it wrong, and she got to get it right because I gave up. And so that happened multiple times. Having that dynamic, like study groups, is a good thing for INFJs to use extroverted feeling. I guess because I was always passionate about studying. I always enjoyed. It's fun to get an A+ in my mind. But again, I was always like in the middle. And I guess I went to a competitive high school academically, but still. Right, and I guess probably like worth mentioning in this video and in most of my content, like the experience I'm mentioning are like from my younger years, not all of them, but like when you're younger, like middle school, high school, that's when the personality has emerged enough that your MBTI type sort of exists fully, but that you still have not gone through like the self-development of young adulthood. So like if it sounds like I'm bagging on a type, girl, look at this hair. But if it sounds like I'm bagging on a type in these videos, like really, because when you list a type strengths and weaknesses, that's when you get the picture of the type. If we just come on here and say INFJs are amazing all the time, like then you're missing really the purpose of, I guess, my subjective view on the purpose of MBTI. There's a first function and there's a fourth function. Anyway, so fear of abandonment. Does this exist for INFJs? Sort of. So I've known many IXXJ friends. So INFJ, ISTJ, ISFJ, and INTJ friends who are friends with flaky friends. IJs can remain loyal to flaky friends for a while. Sorry. The IJ is not reacting to the first flake. We typically respond after a sustained or prolonged amount of time. The IJ can remain loyal to a flaky friend and project like goodness onto that friend, whether it's goodness through FE or goodness through TE. I've also seen IJs like in like long distance relationships where the person started like being less dedicated to that relationship, and that putting a lot of that hurting like the IJ. So that's another thing I've seen. In all, I've seen IJs like move past those things, but that like that flakiness, that non-committed, non-dedicated friend can be hurtful to the IJ. Okay, fear of conflict. There's a lot of great information on fear of conflict already about INFJs and just in general. It's a topic. It's, don't be a people pleaser. This is a very developed topic. I'm going to kind of give my angle on it. I'm sure my angle is just a result of everybody else's angles because, but fear of conflict. There's so many great ways to impact this. What I would say would be to use introverted intuition on yourself. So introverted intuition is good at pinpointing important parts of relationship, like critical points. If someone is breadcrumbing me or ghosting me, the antidote is often for me to put energy into myself. If someone is actively creating conflict towards me, then setting boundaries is I would call the more important part. Journaling is key because you have to use introverted intuition on yourself. We as INFJs are much more useful to ourselves when we go at it through extroverted feeling. So by putting the feelings and experiences on paper where you can see them, I think is easier, especially for the younger INFJ to process. Introverted feeling is more able, and introverted thinking are better at processing like mentally inside. INFJs, I feel like we have to see it. Like every INFJ I know is a kinesthetic learner in school. So learning feelings, we kind of have to use a similar approach. We can talk through it with a friend. That's another way. It's journaling. It's making it real, essentially. Now, your TI convictions, those come with time. Those are kind of like values. Those could be moral values, or those could be just values you have. For INFJs, I know those come with time. Looking at myself and other INFJs, like we don't come out the womb with those. So being in the arts, so yes, the TI, it takes like awareness, and it takes looking at conflict as a multifaceted thing. So being in the arts, you are critiqued all the time. Sometimes, I was lucky to have a lot of nice teachers, but sometimes the teacher is nice, sometimes the teacher is not. But what I learned in the arts is you must hear the critique. You have to, even if in the moment it is stressful for a teacher to, let's say, yell at you. I didn't have that happen like very many times, but it does happen. And for like in other avenues of the arts, it happens more often. But you have to hear and comprehend the critique. So it's like the same with conflict. You have to intellectualize it not as a defense mechanism to excuse other people's um, actions. You have to hear what they're saying, the critique, because in conflict, essentially, you end up getting critiqued, whether you bring the conflict up to someone else or the conflict is brought up to you. You end up getting critiqued. So you have to hear the critique and like deciphering what is the person's affect towards me and what is the critique that they are saying to me. It is important to are they critiquing me, arguing with me, or being mean to me? Evaluating all of those perspectives on the conflict. Now, this is like, how do I say this? This is not professional advice because there's so much advice out there that you can't know someone's motivation. And so by saying, like, I feel this person's being mean to me, then that is, I guess, I don't think this video, like, complies with, like, therapy advice. And this is my subjective views. So this is not professional. Not professional advice, I'd say. So, yes. So questioning yourself, I think, is important in conflict because you have to, when you get critiqued, like when you bring up things to people, you get critiqued, and so you kind of have to already understand your critiques, your shortcomings, I think. It is important to explore these possibilities while putting boundaries in place. You have to question yourself. So in productive conflict, the person helps you unpack it with you. And productive conflict is more of a discussion, and it builds consensus and resolution. Non-productive conflict, people can resist unpacking and might also be disrespectful. So discerning that, really, that's really important discernment. And here we're getting in territory of labeling, like, it's always, you don't know their intention, you don't know if they know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you don't know what people are thinking truly deep down in their hearts. And then people will advocate, like, oh, they're being mean to protect you. Like, who cares? Like honestly, like, or from my view, my unprofessional advice, like, you're responsible for yourself, essentially. So, right? Anyway, so you have to advocate kind of your values. If you value attitude and tone of voice, you have to advocate this and understand that this will be unacceptable and non-empirical BS to a lot of people. So, like, attitude, tone of voice, emotional affect is really not prioritized by a lot of people. Why are INFJs so misunderstood? Because we advocate those things, whether we know it or not. If you can't always, if someone says, what do you say? If you say, let's go to the mall, they can say, yeah, it's fine. Or they could say, it's fine. Or they can be meaner. There are so many range of affects. And so, but what people tend to stick to is, I told you it was fine. Well, like, you did, but like, if you're making an angry facial expression while you say it's fine, right? That is not adding up. And so this is what INFJs, I think, have to advocate, because I think INFJs, we take this stuff seriously. And this is why people misunderstand us. This is why people have all these reactions to us. To value this sort of thing is to question a lot of what people identify as hierarchies of order and power in a lot of scenarios. Not in every scenarios. There's a lot of hierarchies that do do value how people treat each other. Anyway, so continuing, so talking about when the affect does not match the words, right? Because the words are essentially empirical. I said it was fine. They can come back, like, if someone says, if you go to the mall with someone all the time and they always say, it's fine, and then eventually you stop going to the mall with them. And then when you're in an argument with them later, you say, oh, you always get mad when we go to the mall. Then they can say, well, I tell you it's fine. I do mean that. Do you not believe me? Are you calling me a liar? See, now now this is sounding like a narcissist analyzed video where that person's gaslighting you, right? And so recognizing this rhetoric of falling back on what is said and not on never like that falling back on what is said is a common rhetoric. Acknowledging affect is like people don't like that, right? And so advocating that is important. Think of when someone leads someone on. So someone can string someone along, and then when that person is ghosted, they can say, well, we aren't boyfriend and girlfriend, we went on one date, right? So on that one date, they can tell you like their life story with a lot of affect, and you as the INFJ are like listening and being attentive, and you feel as though a bond is created. But then they can fall back and say, what do you mean? You're crazy. We just went on one date. Who cares, right? So this is another scenario. INFJs, the psychological community in general, and which I think they already do, but like YouTube, we have to advocate, like, affect matters. Like, why it's like, oh, it can't be proven, like it's too much of a soft science. Affect is too unempirical to advocate. Well, so yes. Yes. So the solution to that scenario is kind of like when someone is opening up to me too soon, I will say, oh, well, I don't know you that well yet. Let's save that for later. So that's a good like mitigating strategy. Goodness. Okay, next. Right, so that's another scenario where it doesn't exactly look like conflict, but it is where the INFJ trusts the affect. And we, like 4 years ago, we had a ton of videos about how INFJs think we have a connection with someone, but we actually don't. It's because the INFJ values affect. And it's because the INFJs, like, we can help more people to value affect more seriously. Affect never stops in the affect. There is always real other patterns that follow, that are often coexist with the affect. And then I started to question myself in the sense of, am I deep for valuing affect, or am I superficial for valuing affect? What do I mean by this? Because I've seen so many scenarios where a poor affect, like basically a rude tone of voice, a rude attitude, a mean act, like this, all of those unprovable things, if you watch, there's typically other not good things happening. The thing I most obviously point to is like financial irresponsibility, or like if they can be mean when they say, yeah, it's fine. Like if they can do that, then what happens when you go to, like, when it's time to pay the bill and you say, oh, do you want to split the check? Yeah, it's fine. Like, okay, so then now that same bad affect is now in a financial situation, as small as as paying a bill at a restaurant. Yes, we need to take the affect seriously, because if you can't trust them with this little thing of a restaurant bill, right? And then in our Western culture, relationships marry finances, like, so if we can't trust a good alignment and mutuality and respect in paying the bill, how are we going to trust it with a bigger piece of a financial emotional exchange? Financial and the emotional do connect. In nonprofit trainings, there's a term, financial abuse. The existence of this term, the use of this term automatically implies emotions being connected to finances, right? So that's where I was like, am I deep or am I superficial? Because introverted intuition is always looking ahead at what's to come. And what is to come if you cannot bring mutuality and respect to smaller emotional financial interactions? How do we build autonomy, grace, mutuality, and compassion in a society that is all about consumerism, all about like getting more, all about obtaining more, all about what I talked about, like marrying finances? A Western culture that is all about all of these things. The value of the affect has to be more, because how many years? I was on YouTube back around 2019, right? Having been in these circles for so long, there has to be, we have to push for, and we have to advocate this, and just create like healthier relationships in this area. And I've seen over the years, having been this way, having been someone who values affect, I have protected myself from, and I have seen, like, I have watched my friends not value their affect, and they're fine. Everybody is fine. Everybody is happily living the life everyone is essentially living the life they want. But I have seen so many friends not protect their affect. And now they are like financially obligated to things that I'm like, why are you financially obligating yourself to this thing, right? And so let's take the affect more seriously. It is love, compassion, psychology. Yes, this is all airy-fairy. We call it like, oh, it's just astrology. Like, this all manifests not in the airy-fairy term. This is all real. This all is going to really impact me, you, everybody, right? So this is my kind of views on this stuff. INFJ fears. Getting to know those fears will give you like the courage to advocate for how people treat you. So I hope this video made sense to somebody somewhere. This is not professional advice. This is an INFJ YouTube channel. Thanks.